Wow, okay.
Robin Campbell, Assistant County Manager.
Gary Edwards, Commissioner.
And I'm Bud Blake, Commissioner. You are.
Michelle Underwood, Budget Staff. Chris Wall, Denise Doty, Budget.
Yeah. And ma'am, who are you sitting in the back corner?
Oh, hello, Jennifer Walker, Public Works.
You bet. Sir?
Also, Vargas, Fiscal Manager for Public Defense.
Heidi.
Heidi Perbuena, Prosecutor's Office.
Okay.
Prosecutor's Prosecutor's Office.
Sure. So,
So if I may ask you, when you have a chance to speak, can you use the microphone and just
oh, yeah.
pass it around so
Yeah,
we can capture?
Okay. So, you want any background, Robin or Romero, before we go over to the clerk and then hear from the clerk, or is there anything need to be said, done? I just ask it. You don't have to be. I'm not putting you on the spot.
Work through the schedule maybe just for this
So,
one.
right, so, wow, that's loud. Our schedule for today, we are in the middle of the budget work session week, hearing from strategy teams who are making recommendations to the board on how to spend the funding that you've allocated to the different teams. And for the schedule today, this morning, you'll hear from the Law and Justice group. At 10:55, the courts will join us. We'll break for lunch from 11:45 to 1:30. At 1:30, the Health and Human Services initiatives focusing on community health will be presented. And then this afternoon at 2:45, we have the Health and Human Service initiatives around emergency preparedness.
Okay.
And that's the day for today.
Great. So let's just get started. Linda, if you have your slide, and I don't know if you want to pull it up on. Yep. Introduce yourself.
John Tuline, Thurston County Prosecutor.
All right.
Sorry I'm late.
No apologies needed.
Another appointment.
We're
this
busy.
morning.
Okay, Linda, you have the floor.
Okay, well, the clerk's office has three requests before you today. The first two are maintenance level requests. The third one is an increase to an half FTE to a full FTE. The first one actually is moving half of an FTE out of the LFO fund. And the second one is 1.5 FTEs from our facilitator fund. These two requests we've asked for in previous budget cycles. They are both revenue producing funds, and the ending fund balance for both are at a point where they're not able to sustain the 2 FTEs that are in each of those funds. The facilitator provides valuable services to the courts and saves time and money. Our 2 LFO collection officers collect fines and fees and restitution for victims and hold those defendants accountable. If we are not able to get these maintenance level positions, we'll be faced with laying off positions. And we are not in support of any office being given additions when you are moving maintenance level. Remain full.
Just for a lot of sake, what is it, LFF?
Legal financial obligation.
Okay, there you go. That's all I needed. Okay, you had a question?
How much revenue is collected by these individuals?
Ballpark. It don't have to be to
It
the
doesn't have
penny.
to be
Not
exact,
to the
just
penny.
ballpark.
Yeah.
Ballpark.
The Crime Victims Fund receives, I believe, and I've already said this to John, $102,000, and Public Defense receives, I believe, approximately $20,000 to $30,000 per year.
From this collection process?
From the collection efforts of these 2 FTEs.
And that, just roughly, how much do you think total that is?
So 180.
130?
130. Okay. And that's for the 2 positions that we're talking about?
No, that's for half.
Okay.
That doesn't include all the other fines and fees that we
also restitution?
Yeah, also restitution. So we have restitution that we bring in. That's our number one priority is the restitution. So our collection officers are going after the defendants to make them pay their LFOs and the restitution. Since it is a self-supporting fund, when we put collection costs on these cases, we're only allowed to put a collection cost once a year and only up to what was assessed for the original LFO balances. We did hire a second collection officer at the beginning of the year. Since we hired her, I've actually had my collection officers be very aggressive this year. We've been able to get to cases for accounts that we haven't got to in the past with one collection officer. We were able to find a lot of defendants that have been working, put in wage deductions to bring in more revenue. Because of it, we've been able to put more collection costs and more revenue to support these funds. We've actually increased the revenue in these funds by 44% from last year. Still, this increase, it's not enough to support all these increases.
Do you mind passing the microphone? So if you can speak closer to the microphone, that will be good. Yeah.
Like I said, I have had my collection officers be very aggressive. They're going after all these cases after and it's been much collection costs on this year. So we've had an increase in the collection revenue because we've hit all these cases we have. I foresee that it's going to take off. We're going to finally get all caught up. We're only going to be able to put on collection costs on the cases that we actually work. The ones that we don't have problems with, the people don't have to work them. Can't really do that. It's the cases that we're going after the people that are working, they don't want to pay, that we constantly have to go after them, go after their employer. These are the ones that we're taking collection costs on.
Okay. Is that answer?
Yeah.
Sure.
And just to add the history behind this, in 2008, the clerk's office, as you may not remember, I'm sure Robin remembers, my predecessor moved a lot of positions into these funds so that we could avoid layoffs at that time. Over the years, we have been able to move some of them out into the general fund, and this is where we are today for this last two FTEs.
This is the last two?
And a collection agency is not an option.
I believe that it costs more for the collector, for the individuals, because collection agencies charge far more than we do and doing it in-house.
So have you gone through the cost-benefit analysis, determining whether it's a full-time staff versus a collection agency? What will be the financial impact?
I think you'd get some, I mean, there could be some discussion around that. I wouldn't discourage ever exploring it. But I'll tell you that the court and I think other folks in the system would push back hard on the collection agency because the collection agency is going to collect a much higher fee from the individual. There's a lot of debate going on in the criminal justice community about saddling defendants with more and more LFOs. And so it's not only the cost benefit in money, but it's the issue of how that impacts the defendant's ability to pay. So it's kind of a secondary issue.
Right. But I believe the juvenile court uses collection agencies.
So does district court.
Yep.
They do, and I'm not sure that's a
Right.
good idea, but it is what it is, yeah.
That's what I'm asking, because it's part of the system.
But we get the juvenile cases too.
You what? I'm sorry?
So the LFOs for the juvenile cases, we're the ones that also like on them. So I don't know what the juvenile is used for corrections on that side.
Could be their parent pay.
Parent pay. Yeah.
Parent pay.
Yep.
So, but on the LFOs, we're the ones that. And like I said, we only put correction costs on cases that we if they're paying on time, we don't have to deal with them, we don't put collection costs.
Sure.
We're not working. So they're not getting that extra cost. Now, if we were to send them out to all these out to collection, they're all gonna have to pay this cost.
Right, so I believe the district court only sends to collection those cases that are not paying. Yeah, so that is what is happening there.
And I
comparable.
think District Court has a regional approach with, I think it's in Holmes King, Pierce, and Thurston County, just to allow for a better payment of those delinquent accounts of fees. Yeah.
He has a question, and I'm going to move on to the item number 3 on
Yeah, I
that.
just want to know, Patrick, do you have anything to weigh in or an opinion on this as well? Weigh in on this?
Yeah, I can't. Sure. Oops, that's true.
It's all right, it's all right.
Yeah, no, I'd echo John's concern. I have concerns when we straddle defendants with legal financial obligations, working with third-party collection agencies, specifically in district court. What's pretty common there is when those fines and fees go to a collection agency as a result of non-payment of fines, they put holds on their driver's license, and then those individuals have to work with collection agencies. They charge interest, it's a high rate, and they're subject to negotiating with the collection agency to get their license back. So I'd echo, it's a complicated issue, but it does have some issues for the defendants.
So were those processes not followed by the clerk's office? Interest, holds on license, all the things that Patrick just described, that doesn't happen with your collection? The collection, what I'm hearing you say, though, is that collection fees are placed by the clerk on these accounts.
So we
Yeah.
can place, essentially allows us to place it up to $100.
Right. So this is already happening. I think that a cost-benefit analysis would be a plan.
All right, I'm going to try to go to the $32,000 increase, 0.50 FTE. Is there any more discussion on that as far as background? Or, I guess the reason why increase in 0.50 is the question.
We have a need to, that accounting position is actually working on our appeals, which we've been actually looking at all areas in the office to see, and I've shared with you over the last, actually since I became clerk, that I was going to look at everything in the office after Odyssey was put in place to see if there were any needs that the clerk would have. I have continued to look at ways to make it within my budget.
Your means, yeah,
This
sure.
is one area where we really never had anybody working on the appellate process. It requires a lot of extensive work, and it seemed to have more problems with more people working on it, and so I dedicated this person to work on appeals only in addition to her accounting functions.
Okay. Is it what fund side? Is it?
Any revenue associated with that?
General fund?
So the overall request from the clerk's office on the general fund is $166,000, is that correct? Cumulative?
32, 102, and 32?
Yeah, 166.
Okay. Any other question?
And Linda, unless I missed it, what's not being met, it says it can no longer be funded. Is that as of the end of this year? Can no longer fund the general fund. Is that as of like 19 then?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Yep, one more thing?
Yes, so these funds are collecting revenue. What is the revenue going to be used for if you're moving out all of the positions?
Not moving all of the positions. We're only moving those that are non-revenue generating.
So these positions do not generate revenue.
Oh, I thought you...
So there are 2 FTEs in each one of those funds. In addition to that, the LFO fund has an FTE that was there as a result of the 2008 downturn
Right.
in
Yeah, sure,
the
yeah.
economy. And the facilitator is 1.5 FTEs. Since that time, we've been able to move some of those other FTEs. I can't even remember.
Right.
I think it was
Yeah, there were quite a few.
8 total back then.
Yeah.
We're just,
Yeah.
the ending fund balance in each one of those funds is unable to sustain the 1.5 FTEs that are non-revenue generating.
So So I'm a little confused then, because I believe that it was $100,000 for the prosecutor and $32,000 for the Office of Public Defense. There's the two positions generate.
Well, the existing positions that work those funds.
The other positions
The
are
other-
generating
other
the
positions,
revenue.
okay, gotcha.
Sorry.
Gotcha. So in addition to those two other,
Half is accounting.
okay.
One of
Any other questions? No?
One of the LFOs that is being collected there is the crime victim compensation assessment they put on every conviction. So anytime somebody gets convicted, they get a crime victim assessment.
Right.
That money is funneled to our victim fund, which funds our victim advocacy program. So when they're talking about bringing revenue to the prosecutor's office, that's what's happening. So our victim fund is funded by the LFOs that are being collected here.
That was $102,000.
Right, but now it sounds like it's not these positions that collect that money.
That's correct.
So what do these positions do?
They are regular general fund clerk's office positions.
Oh, okay, so it's
And-
not, okay, it's not collection staff.
It's not collection staff.
Okay, so,
We want to continue to maintain those funds, or positions in those funds as they are.
Right, thank you.
Any final thoughts before, I'm gonna go to the coroner next, but any final thoughts on this? No, anybody, make sure we get it all. All right, Gary, we're gonna go to you and then we go to the prosecuting attorney and Thurston County coroner.
Good morning. So 2017 budget request for the 18 budget, I requested an FTE to support our current caseload. And I took the numbers back then that basically five deputies at the time were doing the same caseload as what we were doing with four deputies. So it had increased that much to where we're at the point where I had asked for the FTE. I got a half-time, and that creates a hardship on the rest of the staff because that half-time FTE cannot fully investigate the cases that they can begin it, but they can't finish it because they're a half-time position. So the other investigators have to pick up that caseload, which compounds with the other cases they're already working on. We are this close to becoming I know we're on call 24/7, but we're really close just to manning the office 24/7 just because of the ongoing caseloads. We're in a depressed society with our suicide rates, and our drugs and alcohol, our opioids are increasing as well. So I'm just asking for the half-time position to be increased to a full-time position.
and that's 43,000.
Yes.
Any questions of Gary?
Gary, do you have, did I hear you say you have the office open 24/7?
No, I don't have the staff to do it.
Oh, okay.
Someone's on call.
On call. Okay, good. Okay, good.
Ian?
I'm just looking at the death rates for 2016 and 17, and that increased 4.15%. And we're almost at the end of the year, but is that pretty comparable just this year alone for 2018?
For 2018, we'll probably see right around 2,500 deaths this year.
That keeps increasing.
Oh, definitely.
Is there a percentage to that? Since I'm already locked into the percentage piece.
I
Don't know.
the percentage.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, thanks, Gary.
Any comments, Robin?
Did you say 2,500 or
2,500 deaths.
those are ones you investigate?
Those are reported deaths. We investigate, probably this year, we'll probably investigate 400.
Okay, thank you.
Give or take. And again, we're an action response organization. When death occurs, we filter through the information of whether or not it's a coroner's case or not, and if it meets our criteria, then we make a response.
And so that 400, give or take thus far, is that increase over last year then?
Oh, yeah, last year was 375, I think we put right in.
Okay, we're only middle October, okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Anything else, Gary?
No, appreciate your time.
Sure. All right, let's go to public defense, and then we'll go to prosecuting attorney, and then sheriff.
So, have,
Yours is in the book?
Yes, it's page
On the
4.
presentation.
Page 4. Oh, that one? Okay. Go ahead.
so we have 6 policy
Oh, there we go.
requests, 3 of which are new expenditures, so I can address those first if there's any questions about
Okay,
them.
just start at the top and go to the bottom.
Okay, our first request is no net change to the budget. It essentially transfers a TST line item to a new TST fund for our department. There's no impact to the budget.
Oh, good.
Our second request removes an end date for some Tumwater positions that we have. I briefed the board before on those positions. Just extended those services to the city of Tumwater for the next 2 years, along with the court and the prosecuting attorney. We worked with HR, we need to remove the end dates for those positions. There's no impact to the budget. Our third one is creating 2 FTE positions. There is a new expenditure of $10,000 in 2019 and $3,000 and $3,800 in 2020. This is an offset, so we'd be transferring $214,000 of our budget that we would spend on panel attorneys to do the work that we expect to see in the next 2 years, and that's based off previous year's filing rates and the number of current positions we have. So the impact on 2019, this would be a general fund impact of $10,000 and a $3,800 impact in 2020. Again, this I think fits pretty squarely in Initiative 11 in terms of criminal justice reform. These would be two salaried employees that are supervised and trained to help advance that initiative. Our next policy level request is very similar, but it's serving our juvenile courts. Our department currently has 1 juvenile attorney to serve all of Thurston County. We did the same analysis. We looked at the number of cases that were appointed on, the number of cases we can keep with that attorney, and the number of cases that then go into our private attorney community to serve. We forecast the new expenditure in 2019 would be $30,000, $30,438 to the general fund, and $32,166 in 2020. There's some upfront costs that are one-time costs, of course, within the new FTE equipment, desks, computers, and things of that nature that don't necessarily reoccur. Our next policy level request, which is B2405, is a request to fund our department's second internal investigator. That would be a new expenditure in 2019 of $91,926. It will be a $6,000 offset. Had incredible success in this first year with our first ever in-house investigator, and an additional hit to the general fund, $91,859 in 2020. Our last policy level request is transferring costs to different coding. There's no impact to the general fund. It changes all one of our positions in our juvenile contracts. It's a coding change that
It's technical.
yeah, it's tighter. Well, we've gone through an entire process of making the coding system and units work better for us. Couldn't give you all the details on that, but
That's just a technical thing, huh?
that's a technical thing. You need more technical analysis. I have to turn to Jose who's here. That's just a reorganization that we've gone through to get our coding better.
Comments, questions? Or were you done?
Yeah, I just ran through it, so now I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, sure. As long as you're-
Are you currently paying out of general fund for investigative services through a contract?
So we currently, our staff attorneys primarily use our one internal investigator. So this was the first year we've used that services. We've outsourced about $6,000 worth of that work because it's one investigator serving thousands of clients in juvenile court, district court, and adult felony court. So if a case needs independent investigation, all my attorneys turn to that one investigator to get the work done. It's just a volume issue for
Okay.
that investigator. We experienced an enormous amount of inefficiencies in having that individual. But it's just really not enough to get the work done.
Okay. I have a couple of questions.
Let me get him first.
So the current investigator you have, he or she, she? He's working, he doesn't get paid overtime, or does he?
No.
So, but his
No overtime.
his workload is just packed.
He's busy, but he's efficient.
Well, I don't doubt that.
Yeah.
So just adding a second one, is that going to even the load, or are you still going to be behind?
I think it'll even the load. You know, what I'd like to do is assign that investigator to serve all of Superior Court. We have 12 Superior Court attorneys, each one of them representing 150 clients every year. So 150 times 12, he'd be responsible for any independent investigation for those, on the top of my head, but that's well over 1,500 cases. And then any new additional investigator would serve all district court and all juvenile court.
And so looking down the line, having two investigators, does that expedite cases going to trial or being resolved one way or the other?
Yeah,
To
absolutely.
a conclusion?
Yeah, it does. What we've changed this year is we traditionally have had to outsource all of that work, so we've had to contact independent contracted investigators in the community, see if they're available, paperwork, billing, that's all removed in the process. So now with an internal investigator, that work gets done much faster.
Okay, and I just want to, item number 3,
Yeah.
reduction of outsourcing. I just want to understand that you were asking for 2 FTE attorneys,
Right.
defense lawyers, and removing 2 contract attorneys.
Essentially what we'd be doing is taking that $214,000 of 2019's budget that we expect to spend on panel attorney billings to do that work and apply that money to support 2 FTEs. The difference is $10,000 to fund those 2 FTEs in 2019 and $3,800 in 2020. But again, I think as we've realized in Superior Court with those investments, it really advances not only the initiative, specifically Initiative 11, but we feel confident that we get better work product.
And you're going through workspace alterations to accommodate for
Yes,
attorneys?
we'll make it work.
If that happens?
Yeah, we'll make it work.
Okay.
They have enough closets.
We have some more closets.
There's still those closest still left.
A few closets left, okay. I'm done, thank you.
Because you're going to assign the one individual to Superior Court and deal with all those, I take it those are all felonies then?
Correct.
And those are the ones that are most likely to result in jail time, or maybe they're in jail and we could get them out of jail quicker and get their case adjudicated.
Right.
If we had the investigations, if you were in a more timely fashion, were able to conduct those investigations.
It's funny you mentioned that, Commissioner. I just received some data yesterday on the correlation between our investigative work and whether or not the case resolves and plead as charged. And there's a direct correlation between our independent investigation in a criminal case and a reduction or a different plea of guilty than what was charged. So yes, there's a direct correlation between the two.
So that could help us on jail crowding then.
I certainly think it helps, and what I can say, I know it's helped from the attorney's feedback, is the efficiency in which the cases are processed. There's less delay because they're not waiting for certain investigations to get done.
Okay.
That much I can speak.
But an increase in justice, it sounds like. That's why I'm kind of getting between the lines of what you're saying.
It's more efficient. It's more efficient to do that work. We've experienced that this year.
Okay, thank you.
Romero, Robin, and me.
Yep. So the way you're approaching this financial model, on your maintenance level budget for 2019, you have a set aside for professional services.
Correct.
The professional services, is for panel attorneys. And your proposal is to shift some of the professional services to fund, for FTEs in a way. And I think you're very clear in terms of what is the impact on the general fund for 2019. So I think always going to be part of your business having to hire a panel attorney. What is the remainder fund of the professional services in 2019 if this approach is approved?
It's about $900,000.
So that's the overall, okay.
Just run the numbers yesterday.
Okay, thank you. So, and also a question that I have is, you stated that in 2019, the impact to the general fund, let's pick the first one, $10,080. And in 2020 is $3,800.
Yeah.
So is the intent to transfer even more in 2020 to cover so how that math works?
You'll need a microphone, Jose. I'm
One-time
sorry, man.
costs. It's the one-time costs.
Yeah.
So the transfer of the maintenance funds will become, the transfer of the fund will become the maintenance. So basically, it's just a transfer from one line item in the budget to the next line item in the budget. So it will, the maintenance fund, the maintenance level won't change. But what will change is that we need X amount of money to equip the new defense attorneys, which is a one-time cost.
Okay.
Which we didn't really consider previously, and we had, new positions that were coming into the office that we needed to equip them, and we had to take the money out of the final attorneys, and quit them with that money, which affects our bottom line. And the rest of the money that we're asking, the $3,000, is basically is a recruiting, training, travel, because they have to travel to jail, they have to get training every year, memberships that they have to, that we have to pay for the defense attorneys. That's what we're asking for.
So on 2019, the total request for the general fund is $132,000. What is the total for 2020?
It's 127,905.
127,905.
127?
127,905
For 2020.
for 2020.
So Patrick, are these items in priority order?
Yes, they are.
And
Yeah, I have listed the district court attorneys as my highest priority. We have, that's not just to meet the demand of the cases that we expect to get, and we know we'll get in the next 2 years. It's also an investment in the team. Those 4 lawyers are stretched pretty thin, and I'm concerned about retention, given their workload and their stress levels.
so if the board were to say yes to the 2 FTEs in '03, this B2403, what would your response be if they asked you to absorb the $10,000?
Jose and I have talked about that. I picked up on the innovative.
Does he need a microphone?
Can
You
pass
do need the microphone.
Sorry about that, if you can pass the microphone.
So what we talked about is, as we conclude here today, we're asked to go back and crunch our numbers on how innovative we can be. We've already identified about $4,500 that we could reallocate and not spend in 2019 and 2020 on. We leased a county vehicle. I did that for our investigator, so our investigator wouldn't have to drive his own vehicle out to crime scenes and things of that nature. We haven't got the use out of it, to be honest with you. It's a white Prius with a big Thurston County name on it.
Not the appropriate vehicle for it.
So,
Yeah.
For an
So that's
investigator.
not working
Like
quite
private
as slick.
investigator.
So if the directive after today is come back or be able to propose some innovative ways to save some money, we have at least identified at least one, but it's about half of the 10,000.
Thank you.
He has a question, then I have a couple.
I see a direct correlation between hiring 2 attorneys and hiring an additional investigator.
Right.
Because if you do 2 attorneys, you're going to burn the other one out.
It's about 700 cases.
700 cases a year. Okay. I mean, there is a correlation, yeah?
Yeah, because, even if 25% of those cases need investigation, they would fall either onto our current investigators' workload or have to be contracted out to get out.
So it's an avalanche. Okay.
It's more work.
Delaying justice.
Well, that I can tell you that's the feedback from our attorneys is they can just get the work done faster. There's just less delays.
All right, I have some innovative questions.
Sure.
I'm not saying you have to adhere to them or anything, but we're just thinking it through. So I remember when we hired the first investigator, I think that was a great turning point as far as public defense to be able to get that investigatory service that's necessary. And now we're asking for a second. That's cool. I like that. But can it be done part-time? Is it a 0.5 FTE kind of thing or not? I don't know. You tell me. Can it be, here's another question, can it be not funded in 2019 but fully funded in 2020? Can it be picked up?
Yes, it can.
I'm just thinking of different ways of getting there and at least get it on the table because I understand the importance of it. And then, is it necessary to have 2 FTEs? Can you live with one of the district court indigent versus 2? Still make some progress, but where a cut line can be hypothetically drawn with the 2.
Sure, that, it's still going to have a great impact.
Okay.
Even if it
So
was
there's
just
flexibility in this.
There, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely, there's flexibility. So those are 2 good questions. About a halftime investigator, or just delay it to 2020.
Right. Which one would you prefer?
I would prefer having a halftime.
Starting
FTE.
off and then at least growing it up to a full-time over time? Okay.
Or we could work out a contract, something like that.
Yeah. I'm always trying to cut and grow at the same time. It's the most complicated thing in the world, but it might stay what you have here. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out where it is. So. Any other thing?
Nope.
Nope. All right, let's move on. Did you have any final comments, Patrick?
No.
Okay. Let's go with the prosecuting attorney.
Okay, so our 3 proposals start with the ongoing funding for the public records unit. Just quick background, although I know you know this, we piloted a public records unit about a year and a half ago, whatever it was, and dedicated a full-time attorney and a full-time paralegal to that unit. And over the time of the pilot, I think we've reached all of our benchmarks in terms of what our goals were for that unit, and the work is ongoing. So we initially created the system for the public records to flow, so we now have a centralized public records request system, so that all requests are coming through, flowing through the public records unit, being triaged, and clarified, and anything that needs to be done kind of upfront to make sure we know exactly what records are being sought and what department they're being sought from. The request then goes to the department to retrieve the records. So every department retrieves their own records. We're not digging through other people's records. Once they produce those records, they will, in some instances, do redactions themselves, or public records unit will go through and look for exemptions and redactions and log those and so forth, and then ultimately produce the records. My understanding is most of the communication that happens between the requester and the county now happens through that public records unit. The benefit of that is that these are 2 people now who specialize in public records, both a attorney and a lawyer, both very familiar with the current state of the law. We've done a lot of training with both of them, connected them to various training to make sure they're absolutely current on what the law is. And frankly, there's a skill set in terms of working with requesters, record requesters, that I think has accumulated through that time. So, and just my conversations with the various departments that are working with the public records unit, I've heard nothing but positive feedback. Actually the highest utilizers, and frankly, one my office, and then the other is the sheriff's office. So we spend a lot of time working with them. The other piece that's come into this with the records unit is the ability to give ongoing advice to departments about records issues, and to make sure that the public records folks in each office are also kind of up to speed on what current state of the law is. We want to start moving into actually providing a little bit more formal training for public records folks in the county, and perhaps even for leadership in the county as well. So we've got a good, strong awareness countywide of what the current law is around public records. So that's kind of the next phase we want to go to. The funding that's requested here is to continue that unit going as it is. My prediction was we needed 2 FTEs, a lawyer and a paralegal. So far, we feel like that's worked well because we've got the lawyer really focusing on having all that training and making sure we've got good legal expertise there. The paralegals really kind of doing that day-to-day work, working with the records and with the requesters. And so far, I haven't heard from them any concerns about volume. And as you also know, we just were awarded a grant to fund, at least in part, some software that will also help us get even better with our records in terms of tracking and making sure things don't slip through the cracks. And so that is listed in the 2019-2020. The various amounts are essentially for those two FTEs. The Family Justice Center building lease. This is a result of the Family Support Center's purchase of the new building. I have my domestic violence felony team is down in the Family Support Center now, the current Family Support Center. That has never been the ultimate goal or desire of the program there. The best practice would be to have all of the domestic violence cases within that venue, I guess, for lack of a better way to say it. But right now, it's just focused on the felony. The misdemeanors are still within my misdemeanor team, so that there's a disconnect there. It's always been our vision and goal to eventually have our entire domestic violence program in the Family Justice Center and the Family Support Center. So with the new building, that gives us the opportunity to do that. There would be the space and the square footage to do that. You've been on the tour, so you know the space that we're talking about. There's actually a space there that it looks like it was kind of designed for us, frankly. It's exactly the right number of offices and working space. We're going to have a large area. There'll be a law enforcement working area, so the sheriff has committed to having somebody there on a part-time basis. We just heard a commitment from the deputy chief of Olympia that they are interested in starting to move towards having a domestic violence detective at the Family Justice Center. Hope is building in that program right now. But of course, with the new space, which costs the Family Support Center more than what the fire station was, the old fire station is, and with us increasing our footprint comes the increase in the rent, and that's reflected in the number that you see there. And we've been guaranteed that number through the 2-year budget cycle each year, so there isn't any anticipated increase in that rent through the next budget cycle. So if that didn't get funded, that puts us in a somewhat significant bind because we will have to move out of our space in the fire station when the Family Support Center moves over to the new building. The only alternative I would have is to move my felony domestic violence program back into the courthouse complex somewhere. I have no idea where that would happen right now. And the Family Justice Center would risk losing its affiliation with the National Family Justice Center Alliance, or what's now called the Alliance for Hope International, because having prosecution on site is one of the requirements for affiliation in that group. That's because the model is about that. The model is having prosecutors and community services and law enforcement on site. So that's, there are kind of secondary consequences to us not being able to occupy that space. And then the third thing is, this is an ongoing request. It's the third, fourth, maybe fifth year in a row that this has been on our request list. This is about moving Elizabeth Petrich's FTE from 6/10, which it is now, 60% full-time. I've been talking with Heidi. We may have a strategy by which we could use some of the salary savings that we experienced this year from some turnover going into the next budget, which would mean that we could offset some of the increase in the cost of this, a good portion of it actually. With that savings moving forward into the next budget, so we were just kind of working on that. And so if that's an option that the board's willing to explore, then I have Heidi start working with the budget staff or the financial staff to see what that actually would look like. But we just had a senior a deputy leave the office to go to another prosecutor's office, and we hire a lower deputy at a lower salary, and so there's some savings there that potentially transfers in. So if that's a possibility, I'm interested in exploring that as well, get Elizabeth officially full-time.
Do you have any questions for us?
I do.
Okay, hang on, let me get through there. Go first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
On your Family Justice Center building lease, you're already paying something for downtown, but this is an increase of this much?
So actually, we had been paying something for downtown when we first started, and then the Family Support Center received an OVW grant that offset a little bit of that cost. But that grant, in the last grant cycle, the rent part of that went away. The grant funded other things other than the rent. So we ended up, yes, we did have to pick up a portion of that rent. And this would be, is this the net increase, Heidi, for the 48,000?
It's total amount.
It's the total amount. Oh, we've been paying the other amount has never been budgeted. We absorbed it. Yeah.
How much was that in 2018?
What did we pay for rent?
I'm just,
Didn't pay any for the last 2 years. Because of the grant.
Because of the grant.
Right.
Okay.
Prior to that, it was.
So it's an increase,
okay,
but it's
that's
also your
all right.
total at the same
Yeah,
time.
that's okay.
Yeah.
That's
It's an
fine.
increase and the total is the way to look
It was
at
like
it.
And on any of these positions, sometimes, I mean, I guess we've hired outside counsel for certain specialty cases or something, somewhere along the line. Do you ever contract out on any of these issues where you have specialty needs?
For public records?
Well, no, not for public records, for this, like you're talking about the civil, for
For
example.
Elizabeth?
Elizabeth?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, do you ever do that, or is that a practice, or might it be cheaper to do something like that rather than the full benefit package and everything
Yeah, we
with an
do it case
FTE?
by case when we need kind of specific expertise.
Okay.
And usually that's done in collaboration with the department that is dealing with whatever issue. So for instance, there might be, well, an example would be years ago, we sued the contractor who built the family juvenile court building for defective siding that was put onto that building, and it water leak and all kinds of problems. So we brought in a special deputy that had expertise in doing plaintiff's construction litigation for that. And we sought some special funding from that, and I don't remember exactly what the source
okay, that's
was,
fine.
but yeah, we did do that. Now, all the tort cases that go through a risk pool, that's funded through the risk pool.
And they make those assignments or contracts.
Yeah.
Okay, how about, now that you've had the pilot program for the public records in place for a while, have you been able to break down the percentage of usage of, by department to give us an idea? Because it's my understanding we fund that through, I mean, everybody's paying a portion out of different funds. So some comes out of general fund, some comes out of roads, some comes elsewhere. What I'm wondering about is, I'm always looking to save money in the general fund, so maybe roads used more than the sheriff did, or have you got any percentage breakdowns on that
I
yet?
can get it for you, because our lawyer, our public records lawyer, just like our other civil lawyer, tracks time.
Yes.
And tracks time by department. So we could take a look at the time spent by department and work out some percentages.
So I already have that, and that is the basis of the cost allocation in the indirect cost plan for the entire civil division. Whatever hours they, and you will recall that in our cost plan, it's billed on a 2-year lag. So whatever hours they spend, the entire civil division tracks their time. Whatever hours they spend in any particular department is 2 years later billed to that department, so that it follows the fair and equitable allocation of cost
Okay, so
principle in
you're
state
telling me
law.
there's no more stretch?
We
is that
already
what
do
you're
that,
saying?
although I did recently have a conversation with Elizabeth, who said that they could pay better attention to the specific fund
Okay.
that they're working on, but we do
You tried.
I tried.
allocate. It's worth looking at, but we do follow best
Okay.
practices
bring your
in cost
stretching machine in.
allocation.
I will say, just in follow-up to that, so Karen Horowitz is a public records lawyer, so the hours that she tracks accumulated with all the other civil deputies. So we turn over the total number of hours that our civil division works for each department to Ron, who then works that into the indirect cost
right.
allocation plan. So there is some revenue that's generated for the general fund through that process. I think I could probably take, because Karen does track her time independently, so I think I could probably just take a look at her time and give you at least a rough estimate of how that breaks out department to department.
I would like
Yes.
that.
If that would help.
It'd be interesting to know, and then I guess my follow-up question on that would be, okay, so you've got legal costs going with corrections, for an example. Well, that probably comes out of the general fund, but possibly the case they're talking about might be something that we could take money out of the TST fund, treatment sales tax, if we had it broke down to that point. I'm just asking, I'm trying to be innovative. I'm coming up with
Yeah.
shifting money. That's
The
all.
other thing I just I want to mention is, let's see, there was something I was thinking about. To go back for a minute on the contracting out for civil costs, we do keep track of what it costs us basically on an hourly basis for our civil lawyers. And on the high side, we're at, Heidi, help me out here, maybe $70, $80 an hour. No, it's more than that. What's essentially the highest cost for one of our lawyers per hour, civil division lawyers?
With the overhead,
Yeah, the whole works.
140
Yeah, so $150 an hour, you won't get that.
Yeah, probably a better deal than you'll get on a contract.
Yeah.
Okay.
My wife who's practicing in civil is at $350 an hour.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, it's-
Thank you for doing good on that. Okay.
John, you talked about regarding public records, you received a grant for software?
Yes.
Is that what it was? Is that a state grant?
Yeah, it's the state auditor, right?
State auditor.
Yes.
Yeah, the grantor. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And the bottom one, the civil division, Elizabeth's
Secretary of State.
aide or FTE, the 78,013, that would be the full compensation from .6 to 1.0?
Right, yeah.
And what is it currently, though? I just want to see what the
She's-
difference is.
She's at 60%. So, you mean what's her current cost?
Yeah, the current cost. Just see what the difference is.
It would
So-
be a little less than what you got here because
I
this
see, yeah.
represents 60%.
Okay.
There's no 40%, it will be more
So
than
they
that, just about
do-
85.
Just for the sake of clarity, they do currently pay Elizabeth at full-time. So they've got the full-time cost in their actual expenditures because they fill it through, I think HR calls it overfill. Yeah.
Overfill.
So
okay.
they're already, she's working full-time.
Oh, okay.
They're paying her full-time. He's asking for the additional budget authority,
Okay.
yes.
She's not
Although
budgeted.
they're currently
Got
absorbing it in their
That
budget.
makes sense now. Okay, thank you.
And I like-
Oh, I was going to say that just the history of that is that before Elizabeth was the chief deputy, she was working at 60% when her
Right.
kids were in school. And so then after she was promoted to chief deputy, when I promoted her to chief deputy, we initially absorbed that cost to do that, to make that happen. And now ongoing year to year, we haven't been able to build that into the budget. We've been absorbing it every year. into the
Right.
savings.
That makes sense now. Thank you.
And I believe the strategy that you laid out, John, that in terms of you have some savings, salary savings in 2018 that can help you mitigate the cost in 2018, mitigate the cost in 2019. I don't believe we have a mechanism under the general fund to have a carryover by individual offices. So I think what we're requesting is the additional budget authority.
Oh, yeah, make no mistake, that's not what I was saying, but the idea is that we will have, that there would have been a reduction in the salary from 18 to 19, right, because it doesn't carry over. So then, if you were to look at total gain in budget or total increase in budget, 18 to 19, there would be some capacity there, yeah, I guess, to help offset this.
So it will.
that we didn't actually experience a net increase.
So it will be the same practice, in a way. What have you been utilizing in the past to fill the full-time position?
Right, but it,
In 20.
well, essentially, yes,
Yeah.
but it would build it in, and then it would become part of the maintenance budget going in forward to 19 and beyond.
So the position will
you'll have
change.
the-
Yeah.
So since you're already covering the salary though, what would the new money be used for?
Well, I'm not sure. We're covering it based on unanticipated savings now, because what we do is we accumulate savings over the year as we
Right.
kind of transition people through. So there's no way to predict that or know what that is. We've been able to make it happen year to year. So would we have salary savings going into 1920? I think we would. And that's what I'm trying to say is that if we actually increase the 6/10 to a full FTE on the books and allocate the salary savings that we experienced this year here, then we can build it into maintenance going forward. I don't know how else to.
So then you'd just be reverting more at the end of the year, possibly, if they had these savings.
If everything worked.
Or we'd come in on.
So under your approach, they will be reverting less in 2019
Right.
if this position becomes a full-time. I mean, on the
They'd
books.
be reverting more.
We may be reverting.
If
If
the
the board were to
allocation, if
fund
the
it.
allocation is.
Yeah, it would just
But
add
if-
it to the
if it
budget.
continued to
for each
absorb,
kid.
eventually
If you
we'll-
don't have a plan for how to use an additional $78,000, then it would just be reverted if you have those salary savings, as you have in the last,
Yeah, we would
how
take
many
the
years?
78 and we would apply it to this FTE. Any accumulated salary savings in the 1920 budget would be
Reversion.
either reverted or, maybe that's used in some other.
And that's what I'm trying to get at, is what other things
other
might it
one?
be used for?
You don't know now?
So, but you wouldn't have a plan for it?
Do you have another
Okay.
question? If not-
No, yes, I do. Are these items in your priority order? Are these the priority that you would ask the board for?
It's gonna be hard for me to prioritize the first two, one over the other. The Family Justice Center, I think, would be top priority. The public records should be a priority for this entire county, frankly. I don't know how else to put it, but I leave that to you, frankly.
Us.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay, so just using this 60/40, the 60/40%.
Civil.
Oh, yeah.
Is that salary already prorated to the entities that position serves? So would also this additional 40%, would that also be prorated? So it wouldn't all be coming out of general fund? That's where I'm going
So
with this.
Elizabeth tracks her time same as every other lawyer. So a portion of that would, if she works for a non-general fund agency, but in full disclosure, her primary client is you.
Yeah.
Your general fund.
Okay,
So
well, but a lot of our activity has to do with the other funds.
But remember the 2-year lag. So even the 2-year lag, this is an
You need
impact.
the general fund
This is an
appropriation.
impact on 2019 and 2020.
But why can't we take that money out of another fund, is what I'm saying, rather than the general
Because it's
fund?
cost allocated and.
2-year lag.
Yep, and if that would be
Well, could you at least look at it and see if there isn't a percentage that we can figure out?
I certainly could look, yes.
You're stretching today, huh?
I'm stretching as far as I can.
Anything
I
else, Robin?
appreciate the thought and iteration.
Anything else, Robin?
Not for me, no,
I
thank
have
you.
a couple the pilot team, PRU, as I know it, I remember when we did not have it and it came about. Is it a 2-member team right now?
It's two. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a lawyer and a paralegal.
This is not an additional FTEs, this is the continuation of those two.
This is the pilot This is essentially taking it from a pilot to a full-time program.
Now, making a program of record is what I would call it, yeah?
Yep.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Again, that's prorated,
John,
right?
do you want to talk about, we had over 400 hours of legal intern allocated to public record in 2018.
Oh,
So that would be
Yeah.
approximately a $10,000 value because we pushed 2 of our law students into assistance when we had the big bulk. I just think that's important to mention because that was at no cost to the county.
yeah.
So you can repeat all that into the microphone, John?
So Christie just reminded me that we allocated a couple of interns to public records this year. I'm not gonna get too far afield, but just so that you know, we run a really robust internship program, particularly during the summer. We have anywhere from 12 to 15 interns working in the office
Good.
during that time, all law students in various stages. Well, actually, some undergraduate students too. But we took a couple of those interns this year and assigned them to the public records unit. So we got some extra help there, no cost, but it helps process that load, and I think we continue to do that.
Sure, and so with these 2 FTEs, just remind me that it is, each department or office has a cost associated with that action and paying back into the FTE fund, right? Is that how?
Yeah,
Is
so
that-
it gets
not
built
quite.
into their indirect cost.
Hang on a second.
So it's built into the indirect cost,
Yes,
so anybody who's paying indirect costs, that's built into that. And then some of that indirect cost is borne by the general fund, some of it is coming into the general fund from outside funds,
That's right.
depending on
It's a portion.
that, yeah, so there's a portion, yes. And so the general fund does see revenue. I think Elizabeth roughed it out that about 30% of our hours billed, or maybe it was higher than that, do you remember, Holly? 31%, so 30% of our
30%?
hours billed is actually revenue coming into the general fund.
All right, you had a comment?
So just to clarify who pays the indirect costs, offices and departments who have restricted funds pay into the general fund, but any office that is general fund does not pay. That's not built in their budget. They're not billed for indirect. They are for internal services. So it's just a nuance.
Yeah,
It's a
just
nuance.
methodology thing.
Right, but we do know how much of the time is general fund supported.
So on this particular,
No,
Sounds like it's 30% other fund, 70% general fund.
and
That's what I was after, yeah.
I have to question that. The reason I say that is the county budget is 2/3 non-general fund and 1/3 general fund.
That's right.
So why the disparity?
By request.
What's that
Because
about?
Where they spend their time.
Well, they spend their time, because as you stated.
Mostly general fund.
Well, the sheriff's office has a lot of public records requests, and so that's how the fund is allocated. Is on the request themselves, that's where they track the time.
So if Heidi tracked that closer, we can get it out of other funds.
Are you looking for another question? All right. I'm still on the PR.
Good job
Okay.
with the right now, I'll tell you that.
I'm still on the PRU, because I remember the days when this was talked about, and we're at 2. And there's also a discussion of a 3rd and a 4th FTE. Is that something in mind now? I see you have 19 and 20, but is it your intention to grow it or keep it as is to meet the demands?
Right now, as I sit here right now, I want to get 2 more years of experience working on this through this budget cycle, and then we'll see where we're at. I mean, if the pilot, the experience we have in the pilot right now is that I feel like we've got the FTEs we need to do the work that we're doing. And the software will help that even more, and we'll continue to allocate some interim time and so forth. So if we go through this next 2 years of experience, and either we see a continued growth in requests or growth in workload, I may be back, but we'll see. But I think we can get through the next 2-year budget cycle with what we've got.
Okay. I'm going to jump to the Family Justice Center. You had mentioned there's other partners that are interested in participating in the cost of this. How reliable and credible is that?
For the sheriff, it's reliable and credible.
I got
Unless
that
he
part.
tells me it's
Yeah.
not.
I'm talking about the others.
Olympia has
Yeah, yeah.
stated an intent, but no timeline.
Okay,
and
so-
no specific commitment. Now, that doesn't offset any of this cost. 'Cause
That's where I was going.
The space that we're looking at for law enforcement, I don't believe is included in this figure. This is just
start
different.
space. Yeah.
Oh, so this is 48 just for prosecuting attorney? and
This
then-
covers all my deputy prosecutors, staff, and victim advocates.
So is there one for the sheriff coming up also?
We show up there every Wednesday. We show up there.
Yeah, but-
Just for a day, so we contributed to the payment of the space at one time before we got the grant to take care of it. So we haven't gone into that part yet.
So just from my head, my clarification, will there be additional monies for specifically to the law enforcement in addition to the 48?
No.
No? Okay, good. So 4820 gets us
I
what
don't know if it'd be helpful just to say that the way that the grant is now structured, as John has indicated, if you're a full-time office on site, 20, well, not 24/7, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, full-time, yeah, I got you.
That's when you have to pay, the grant will not cover it, but the grant does cover drop space for someone like the sheriff's
Okay,
office.
I just want to get the understanding of where the dollars go to get the action.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
You have some part-time people going over there once in a while, don't you?
The clerk's office.
That are
is
drop-ins,
also trouble.
drop-in people?
Actually, it's his folks that drop in.
Well, no, but maybe yours should too.
And the clerk has, you call it
Okay.
drop-in?
Okay.
Well, if they're not full-time, then they can be covered as part
Okay.
of the grant.
I'm just trying to get the terminology, drop-in.
See where I'm going with that, Sean?
So with,
So I'm not sure, but
if OPD wanted to have a detective assigned there, would that be again, I'm not sure what their intent is, once a week as well? Or would they be a full-time assigned? Probably not.
I think that's what they're starting to think about is, what I heard from, so this came from
I'm sorry.
Chief Jelsic, who said that he has an interest in developing a specialty detective on domestic violence or redeveloping that, because OPD actually had that years ago.
Yeah.
And then kind of lost it when they were going through a huge transition. But I think he has said that he wants to go back to that model and that he wants to have that detective affiliated with the Family Justice Center. But I don't think he's far enough along to say
Okay.
what that would look like.
So it's in the preliminary
Thank you.
preliminary
So
stage.
that's why I said it's kind of stated intent, but
Okay.
nothing really more than that.
All right, you have one more, and then we'll kind of close it out. I gotta get the sheriff in. No, you have anything? Anything?
No.
Final comments from you? Or anything you
Nope,
thought of, or
thank you.
Kristen, anybody? Okay, let's move on to the sheriff. Mr. Sheriff John Snaza.
You'll get tired.
Where's the?
This sheriff did not.
Is this yours?
Yes, it is.
I like it.
Short and sweet.
No request?
That's what I'm saying. No request. Go ahead.
So, starting out with just the maintenance, funding for the grants and contracts for 2019. Do you want me to give you the amounts?
Yeah. Is that something we get a copy
I
of?
need, I can't check with you, so
We get a copy of that?
If you give us something, we can go make copies.
what do you got in your hand that we can go make a copy real quick?
Yeah, because this is all we have.
That's not helpful.
We
So
do a lot
yes,
of-
you can give us the numbers, but it wouldn't help right now. So,
Okay.
and we want to help.
Thank you, sir.
Do you really want to know?
That's what we're here for.
We're walking down that yellow brick road. Yes.
Yes.
We love to get to the Goldilocks moment. Just right.
By the way, the highest utilizer of Karen's time is, if you're curious.
Karen being the PRU.
Public records, is the Florida County Commission.
You just had to say
That's my little
that.
extra. I was just looking
I'm
at-
glad he doesn't have the mic.
Is the gift that keeps on giving.
I asked you if there were any additional comments. That comment was thrown out. So.
Okay, I'm sorry I asked.
Well, you trick it. You look at Horowitz and you go,
And he didn't have the microphone.
Who's the second highest?
Commissioner, 180. The second one is,
The public prosecuting attorney's office, right?
yep.
Yeah, that's it.
Is it really?
Who's the third? Is the
Wow.
sheriff?
Let me look at the sheriff. Sheriff's right up there too. Actually, the sheriff and the sheriff's number 2 by a little bit, and we're number 3.
It's all the
So
same.
I was right. I said we're the biggest
You can try harder.
Well, that's what everybody wants. They want their police recorder, they want their
Right,
Yeah.
right.
criminal record.
Yeah, I want to
I
know.
want something out of you.
Yeah, some transparency issue or something. Yeah.
Further some agenda.
Yeah, yeah. That's funny.
Thank you.
So we could fund it or not fund it.
Thank you.
One way or another, you're going to pay through the nose.
Yep.
Thank you.
Either fund it or get out the checkbook.
Yeah, exactly. I will say while we're on that.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
When 2 years ago, when you were doing this pilot program, it was being considered. It was a huge discussion over there on the Hill how to do public records, and hopefully we have set this pilot program in a direction where many can follow, and how to resolve some of the issues that have larger issues
Yeah, I
over
guess
there.
that's policy stuff, right? Yeah. Well, and I actually would have some intent of starting to leverage Karen a little bit for testimony. Sometimes it's nice for legislators to hear from somebody who's in the trenches doing the.
Oh yeah,
out there.
absolutely, yeah.
And I think Karen would be great
Okay.
testifying in the legislature, so I don't
Okay.
know that she knows that yet. But I
Well,
plan to-
just let her know that number 1, number 2, number 3 are in it together. So, all right, Mr. Johns, Sheriff's Nozzle, you have the floor. Go ahead.
Okay, for maintenance,
Where you at on the page? Where you at on the page?
the very top.
Okay.
law enforcement.
Okay, good. Sure, go ahead.
For funding for grants and contracts.
Oh, I see.
9,471, and the maintenance is the carryover. But I didn't put it down as policy because if it's already, I just want it continually funded. Reversal of funding for captain's bargaining agreement, which is now built in the salaries, that's 54,000.
328.
328. Reversal of funding for Deputy Sheriff's Association, which is now built into the salaries, is 203,183. And then reversal of Sheriff's Administrative Support Contract from 2017, which is now built into salaries, which is 23,385. And reversing sheriff change request for years 2019 to 2021 that was not funded, and that would be in 2020, 22,797. So then policy requests, funding for the crime analyst, which is currently filled, which is what we are currently using, is 97,270 for 19 and 97,728 for 20. For staffing requests, it says 19, but I'm saying 12 because that's what we had discussed, so I don't know how 19 positions got in there. So the funding, it was more accurate with Robin, or with Heidi's numbers, so I just reduced it by about $800,000 just because the average deputy, brand new deputy, is about 130. Starting out, a brand new deputy is about 198, and that includes a vehicle.
Sure.
So I reduced it to 1.4 for 19 and 1.5 for 20. And then funding for law enforcement overtime, 265, 906 for 19, and 265, 906 for 20. Funding for equipment, supplies, 56,120, 52,100. Funding for training and travel, 60,230, and again 60,230 for 20. Funding for benefits related to overtime, 23,666, the same for 2020. And then additional crime scene screening system to IT reserves is 39,880 in 2020, 39,880, and then the unmanned aerial system adding to ER&R, 6406 for both 19 and 20. And it also have funding for narcotics task force, but I'm not asking for that at this time. So I apologize for that.
Does that reflect in the total?
It does.
All right, you want to go with law
You want to
enforcement?
go to corrections and I can answer
Yes.
any questions? or-
Let's go with corrections, then we'll come back to it.
Okay, for the maintenance, reversal of corrections collective bargaining contract increases built into salaries, which was $196,254. Reversal of sheriff's management support contract from 2017, $7,234. Reversal of captain's collective bargaining agreement, now built into salaries, $50,515. Reversing corrections salaries and benefits that are forecast to the salaries module in 2020, $50,515. Staff from 2018 Sixth Amendment, that's the 7 corrections deputies that you have agreed to. 823,411. 2020 is 86328. And inmate mental health, AR&P 2018, that's also through the Sixth Amendment, which is 48,000, both in 19 and 20. Going into policy change, the Boris Robertson staffing study, which added 5 additional corrections depth. Well, it actually was 4 correctional, or 5 more correction, because in, I apologize for the maintenance, you already added a correction step. And then in funding for replacement of weapons, $15,000 for 2020. Funding for travel and training, $32,860 for both years. Funding for overtime, $784,252, same for 20. Funding for benefits related to overtime, $83,059 for both years. Additional funding for contract housing, $114,349 for both years. Fixed carry forward treatment sales tax and CJTC contract. That's $12,555, and it goes into 20 for $12,430. And I also, underneath there, I have contractual increases, which is $8,582 for both years. Mental health treatment, crisis and care for 2020, $400,000, and then bus passes for transitions and diversion reentry clients, $6480. So now I'm ready for your questions. I know it's a lot, and I apologize for the speed of that, but I was watching the time.
What are your questions or comments?
On your additional funding for contract housing,
Where you at?
on corrections number,
784?
no, 11,
Overtime.
It's 114,000.
114,000. How are we faring on contract housing? Are we seeing a reduction in the need for that?
We're still at that same price. That's why we put it there. We're still right at that. We have created some more room in the jail, because at the beginning of the year, we were up to 34 inmates that were in our facility for over 365 days. And this week we're down to 14, but we've been down to as low as 10. So we've been able to afford some more room. And so we worked out a contract with Lewis County to get a better deal than what we were with Yakima, and they were closer. So we've been working on that. So it's been staying lower than what we had in past years.
But the problem definitely not solved yet.
No, sir.
How about number 8 down on the bottom on the mental health treatment and crisis care?
Yeah, that's also my question.
400,000 for 2020. Are we, Is anything playing in there about the community mental health treatment business? Because I don't know, I guess the state's closing, like Western State, or is that affecting us? Is that where that's coming from?
Well, my biggest fear is that it's going to get larger than that. The governor's talking about putting the mental health crisis on the counties and not on.
Yeah, that's the kind of the question I'm asking.
And so we are fearful that we are going to see an increase in mental health treatment. Also, we've been working diligently with Disability Rights of Washington and trying to ensure that our mental health people are being seen. The unfortunate part that we're seeing is that in the cell units, we do not have the staffing to ensure that they have more time out of their cells than an hour per individual per day. And so we don't have the staffing to watch them more than 1 hour each. And so that's a big crutch that Disability Rights is using on us, is that we need to have more deputies watching our mentally ill, and we need more mental health individuals in our units.
Is that a response from the last letter that we sent?
That's what we're being told through DRW. I don't know about the letter part. I know that that's through Chief Toma.
What do you got?
I got a couple.
Because we have been working with DRW, and I think at least my understanding, we have addressed some of their concerns. So if there's any additional requests from DRW, we have not received a formal
We've been
response.
addressing the request, but not all the requests are being made.
Right. Okay.
That's the part where they want more. They want the individuals to be out of their cells more often than what we are able to allow them due to the staffing.
So we have the same question, but I got to get it. Him. So we're still on the 400,000. He has a clarification portion, and then I
Just
just have
trying
a
to
question.
clarify the 400, what that all entails, what's new money, what's that about? I just
Yeah.
don't understand.
Is it FTE treatment? What is the
Yeah,
intent
I'm
of
just
that?
trying to
That's the treatment, and that should be funded through the treatment sales tax
Right. But for what?
for mental health crisis counselors or mental health counselors being,
So people and program.
yes.
Okay.
And
More people.
more than what you already
We're
have.
going to need more individuals and also pay for some staffing
Yes.
for us
what
to
I'm
be able
looking
to meet what Disability Rights of Washington is
Right,
asking.
that's what I was wondering, trying to fill
Okay.
that void, okay.
Okay. And I just, let me go to him, and I'll come to you, and then we'll end with me. I know, I'm just trying to keep the story out here, and I still got to get the courts here at 10:55.
I'll try to make this make sense. I'm on the top side. I'm looking at number 3, the staffing request, and you have 19, but it's actually not 19, it's 12.
In
Yes, sir.
law enforcement, yeah.
But that 2.2 million is for the 19. So it looks like it's for 12, it'd be like I just figured at the 130,000 per dep, that's 1.56.
I figured about 1.4
Okay.
For
The
19
lag.
and 1.5 for 20.
Okay.
And that was just trying to do the simple, fairly.
So we're close.
Smart math.
It's
I'm
not-
doing
it's not the
it.
math.
The
This
fortunate
math.
part is that
Yeah, I do that too.
new deputies in the beginning cost about $198.
'Cause they need a car.
But then
Yeah.
when we itemize it out over time is when it gets lower.
Sure.
So my question is, with that in mind, 12 deputies, the equipment and supplies would jump up also from 56,000 to something else. Is that equipping a dep as well, or are you just talking about toner?
Well, the equipment and supplies, and also if I could add the training component in there, we haven't had a budget for training.
No, I know.
Could happen.
No.
So we have,
Since I've been here.
we divided it up, say that this is what it cost us, or what we have been absorbing. So we put that into now making it a budget request.
Line item.
Line item, yeah.
Good grief, okay.
Since I've been here.
Thank you for that. But now, with 12 deputies, in theory, how would that impact the overtime at $266,000? Because you'd
Well-
think, oh, it'll wipe it out, but I know darn well it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way, but we have 120,000 that we've been allotted for overtime this year. And it's cost us more money, more than that. It's cost us the amount that we're asking for, the 265, is what we're spending on overtime right now. Would overtime go down? Absolutely. What we're seeing right now, unfortunately, is that our staffing right now is the way it was when Commissioner Edwards was there in 1995.
1895?
I think they went /horses/new vehicles. I don't know.
You know I love you, I'm kidding.
But what I am saying is that it is, the overtime, unfortunately, with new deputies is there.
Right.
Because of the new deputies. But what we're seeing now is the overtime because of lack of staffing.
Okay, just over $250,000.
Yes.
Okay, so two more questions, I'm done. Number 8 on top, add crime scene scanning system to IT reserves. What is the crime scene scanning system?
That's our Faro that we've been using for crime scene. It's with the crime scene scanning, not only are we using it for crime scenes now, but we also need one for vehicular crime scenes.
Is it like Total Station or like the
It's
mapping and all that?
way improved total.
Okay, so it's on steroids.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, that's a
beautiful.
very cool tool.
Yeah, okay.
But we're using it for crime scenes when detectives come out to do crime scene investigation. But we're also needing it for fatality collisions, serious injury collisions that we are seeing. Also, we used it for our officer-involved shootings, all of them. So
Yeah.
unfortunately,
So with that in mind, for a fatal crash or a near fatal crash or officer-involved shootings, do the other jurisdictions, like WSP, do they handle the fatals or?
no, we do.
We do. And the,
I'm sorry, we do. State Patrol does assist on the fatals if requested, but we've been sending the deputies to the training to handle all fatals as well.
okay, State Patrol, I would imagine, has that scanning system.
They do have
Yeah.
a Faro.
And
They
for,
actually, I think they have a couple.
Are you saying Faro or Faro?
Faro.
Oh.
F-A-R-O.
Oh, Faro, okay. And for the multi-jurisdictional officer-involved shooting team, does any of the other jurisdictions have Faro?
No.
So, okay. Thank you. So I'm jumping down
I
out.
do think that Olympia might be getting one. I think they might be getting one.
Okay, that's theoretical at this point.
Yes, sir.
Looking at the bottom, number 7, contractual increases. What does that mean? I know what it means in my head, but it could mean a couple different things.
Contractual increases with our treatment providers.
Oh, down in the.
Okay, okay, so it's a TST stuff.
Yeah.
Got it, thank you. I'm done at this point.
Yeah, it's a similar question of what Commissioner Hutchins asked, but it's mainly to corrections. Considering the board approved 7 new positions, and then your request, you had 5 more. And then intuitively, the overtime should be reduced, and having an additional 784,000 requests in overtime, I just don't see the math on that.
Well, at this time, the 784 is request because that's what we're seeing right now. Although I've been approved for the 7, and if I'm approved for the 5
more.
My ability to hire 12 corrections deputies within a year is probably not likely.
Like 15%.
We're seeing a 90% failure rate
Right.
on all applicants, both for the law enforcement and the corrections. So we've been down, we're still down 6.
I was going to ask, what is the current vacancy?
We're down 6 just in our current.
That includes the 7?
Plenty
No.
of room, yeah.
So 6 plus the 7.
Is 13
So-
plus if we got 5
Yeah.
more, we'd
Four
be
more.
down 18.
But in terms of, I understand that, you cannot fill those positions, and that's where you need the overtime. But since there's a budget allocation for those positions, the salary savings should fund the overtime.
The salaries, the savings should, but we're seeing that we're still increasing in our overtime. And I don't know where we're gonna go at. That's where I'm fearful of. I don't know what it's gonna go at, and a lot of it has to do with a jail population. We've been working with the prosecutor's office and Office of Assigned Counsel and the judges to try to reduce our population and more pretrial and come up with better ways to reduce our jail population. But we're still trying to do that. And I don't want to say it's going to be done if I can't get it done. That's my biggest fear. And what we're seeing is our overtime still going up. Unfortunately, it's a lot higher than $700,000 right now today. We're over $1 million just in overtime just this year alone. It'll probably be about 1.3 by the end of this year, if not more, just in overtime.
But again, the 7 positions that were approved, since they have not been filled, a yearly basis, those may have a price tag of $800,000.
Okay, so if
and-
we're gonna go into, you're funding them through next year, 2019.
The 7 new positions
If
are
I get those
funded.
7 positions, yes, would my overtime rate go down?
Yeah.
I hope it does, but right now, even, I'm down 6 right now,
Sure.
and if I've been given 7, so now I'm down 13, and my overtime rate is still 1.3. And I still have more retirees coming up next year.
So how much is your vacancy savings from not filling those positions?
My vacancy savings, I would not be able to give you an accurate number just because Heidi's not here to give you that number. But if I was to say my vacancy savings, that's why I'm only 1.3 million, is because my vacancy savings has covered about 700,000 of it.
Wow.
And that's where we've come up with that number. It isn't just it's not just a number that I've made up or Heidi has made up. It's a number that we are using even to this day because of that. But we are using our vacancy savings, which would be the 700 plus thousand.
To supplement the overtime.
Yeah.
Supplement. Yeah. Anything else, Rob?
Um,
Yeah. One more. I gotta get them out here in 5 or 6 minutes. So.
I'm here as long as you want.
No, I have the
we
report.
have-
we have the court coming in.
They can wait.
Well, I did not talk to the judges.
So I would just note to the board on the 400,000, according to the information from treatment sales tax, the information that's in the system that was entered by the sheriff's staff is that the funding is in anticipation of treatment no longer being provided by the BHO. So the BHO is currently providing approximately $380,000 in
I remember that
treatment services. If that should go away,
I remember that
this
statement.
400,000 will be necessary. And I would also remind the board that you've already made some preliminary decisions around restricted funds and have given a nod to the treatment sales tax items on this list, and also funding maintenance level which in part, the additional FTEs that you approved this year are being paid from detention sales tax, not the general fund.
Follow up, and then I'm
Good.
Good. Just for clarity here is, I forgot where I was trying to keep everything going. Is I call it the contract beds,
Contract housing.
housing, okay, housing. Lewis County, is it still Okanagan?
Yakima.
Yakima?
Yakima.
Just Yakima?
Yakima and Lewis County.
Those are the only two now. And that's not full blown in either one of them, just maybe Lewis County. Is that?
We have been sending people to Yakima if they're serving out a sentence, and we can make that happen. We've been doing that, but we've been trying to get everybody to Lewis County. Just so I can clarify to the board,
Yeah.
and I apologize if there's a judge
No, you got.
in the room yet, but I know that Lewis County is going through some of their own commissioner stuff, so
I don't know what that means, but it's okay.
that means that they're having their disagreements.
Oh, okay.
Issues. Yeah, thank you, sir. But they're having their own arguments as to whether we'll still be able to continue working with Lewis County. But as of right now, we should be able to.
For 2019, what is the cost for contract bed or housing that you've had to? What's the cost?
It's about $65.
I'm so sorry. What is the total dollar amount for the year that you've had to pay?
I would not be able to. I'm assuming that. I mean, just look at this real quick.
Off the top of your head, it's a ballpark. Because I'm going.
Same amount that we're looking at right now.
100.
About the same amount.
Oh, okay, good. That's good. All right, because I remember 3 years.
That's how I
I say this. I say this because 3 years ago, I remember distinctly being in the $400,000 range, and if it's that difference, then we've made some progress, and that's what I'm hoping for. That's all. Okay.
One last question.
Final comment, then I gotta get us out of here.
Chief Toma was working on what you call group beds with Lewis County, meaning the intent of that approach was to eliminate the volatility up to how much we paid, and just having a set amount of number of beds, whether we use it or not.
15 beds.
So is that came to fruition? Do you know?
Yes, and it was worked out with the chief in Lewis County and Chief Toma that we would be guaranteed 15 beds.
A certain amount.
This was good.
Yes.
Okay.
All righty.
One last thing for me, and I'm done, I swear. Okay, I
Don't say
forgot to mention that I'm general fund,
We
our
knew that.
autopsy budget.
We knew that already. We knew that already. I think.
Autopsy budget is $198,000, and Thurston County gets reimbursed 40% of that, which is
Oh.
after labs and x-rays, it's in excess of $80,000 a year. So.
Okay. Sure. All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Sir. It is, and all the staff that goes with that. It's not always easy, but it's I appreciate your patience and your professionalism. We are trying to do this as one family, one team to take care of the county, and it is good to have this discussion.
And the general fund is always tight.
Very beneficial.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
It's good. It's very helpful. So we're going to take a 5-minute break. On first there, Mary.
Keep putting your microphone a little closer.
All right. I was not anticipating starting first.
That's
so
all right.
I will get-
We'll go with the best first. It's not hard. Just read it, what you think, what you want to say as a director, and we'll ask questions. It's kind of. No, I'm waiting on Judge Charlotte. That's why I got it read out that way. Sorry.
Commissioner, respectfully,
Yes.
we had something else kind of planned as a team when we got together and discussed.
Is this what Robin just referred to?
Possibly, and I didn't hear what she said, but I would like to decline your request for me to go first and go with what our team had decided.
Well, let's do it this way. Will it help with Judge Charlotte's calendar? That's what I'm after.
Okay.
Huh? Okay, good. Go.
Commissioner Blake, Commissioner Edwards, Commissioner, good morning. Brett Buckley, Thurston County District Court. What Mary Ann was referring to is that we appreciated the construction of this budget group in this makeup because it makes a lot more sense than getting us involved in the total criminal justice area. However, the practicality of what we had to decide when given this group of $100,000, that I think really would only potentially serve district court's request. We could get that in under that amount, but no other requests. And it certainly didn't make any sense for any of the other groups to acquiesce to only funding district court. And it doesn't make any sense to pay pretrial services and giving them only 1% of that $100,000 and try to parse that out in a way that we could effectively address other people's needs. So looking at it, we said, now if you put a couple other zeros on that number, then we can come back with some practical ways of dividing up that amount.
If only.
That number, it just didn't make any sense. So we can't come to you saying the five of us have spoken and here's what we are suggesting, looking at the budgets of all five groups. So I appreciate the construction of the group in the way it was formed this year. I don't think there's anything that we can get out of that. So that was, we just wanted to start with that sort of preamble on the process. So we'll each come to you with our budget requests. And
Yeah.
let you make the hard decisions.
That's right.
Well put though, Judge.
She wasn't expected to go first either.
In the interest of serving time for Judge Schaller, I will start with the budget.
All righty.
We have essentially two items on our general fund request, and
Which page are you on, sir?
so that probably is page 3.
3.
3. Okay, we're all tracking.
Got it.
No, you
The
don't.
first several pages, which have all of the different departments sort of lined out, what we did is we went through the exercise of taking all of our requests and aligning them to the initiatives in the strategic plan. So those are just for information. We would just skip down to page, keep going.
Next page
4?
with
No.
initiative 10.
Initiative 10? Okay.
Okay.
Okay, that is 4.
All right, so pertinent to district court, we have two general fund requests. The first request would be to increase the time of our current court commissioner from a 75% court commissioner to a full-time court commissioner. The basis of that request is we've been working with the county to address our courtroom need on a sort of interim basis until we have a new court facility. We are currently twice a week having to negotiate with Superior Court for use of one of their courtrooms to accommodate the number of calendars that we have. Superior Court has been very accommodating in that approach and been great to work with, but I'm sure they would like not to have us constantly harass them for another courtroom. And it's really difficult for our users because we can never tell them more than a week ahead of time where they're supposed to be, and frequently it's just that day when they show up in court
good God,
where
okay.
we can direct them to the appropriate courtroom, usually not in our building. So that becomes really problematic for the users of the court. So the county is undergoing a study to see if they can develop a space that would give us a small fourth courtroom that we could use rather than having to go over to Superior Court all the time. If we have that small courtroom, once that is open, we could then, if we were able to bump our commissioner up to full-time, run our full-time calendars that way. So it would be timed with the construction of that courtroom. Hence, you see a lower cost initially in 2019 because we're obviously anticipating that construction would take a while to go into effect or to be completed. And then we would then be able to use our commissioner full-time to address our growing case needs.
Okay.
And, I can tell you our commissioner does an excellent job and is really an excellent judge, so it would be money well spent probably in addressing staffing needs in district court. The other increase there is an increase in pro tem salaries. We currently pay our pro tem judges $50 an hour. If we use the formula that is used by pro tems in Superior Court, which is a percentage of the judge's salary broken down to per hour, that would be an $80 an hour figure. So we are actually paying our pro tems as a percentage basis of the judge's salary significantly less than Superior Court pays their pro tems as a percentage of their judge's salary. So it makes sense to us that pro tems ought to be paid proportionally at the same percentage of the judge's salary in both courts. Now, we use pro tems a lot because we only have a 3/4 time commissioner, and they do an excellent job, but it's really tough to get practicing lawyers to come in. It's not going to be anything that they're coming in to make money on, but at $50 an hour, they're losing a lot of money out of their normal time by coming in. So I think it would help us in retaining pro tems, and it also makes sense in having the courts be consistent between district court and Superior Court as to what percentage of the judge's salary is paid in pro tems. So that's the basis for the general fund requests for district court. We also have an important request which the Treatment Sales Tax Board has approved, and that's probably on page 5 and initiative number 11, and that is a mental health probation counselor. So we have mental health court, we have veterans court, we have a capacity between those two courts of 55 defendants at any one time. Obviously, as we all know from being increasingly aware of the mental health component to the criminal justice system, there are significantly more people in our jails who have mental health issues, and we cannot address them all in the context of mental health court and veterans court. So at district court, one of the ways we're thinking of doing it or proposing would be to have a mental health specific probation counselor who could then take on that caseload, and it would improve the caseload efficiency for our other two probation counselors by allowing them to take off some of the people who are problematic for them, and those are the mental health folks, because they always have an overlay of that mental illness besides frequently co-occurring issues of alcohol or drug dependence. So having somebody who specializes in that area would make the probation managing of those folks much more efficient. Treatment Sales Tax Board has agreed that this is something that makes a lot of sense in addressing the health needs of our community, and they have approved that. So that would be a TSD.
Recommended. They've recommended.
Recommended approval of that. So that would be our other significant budget increase. Now, I do want to point out, we have, I believe, on page 7, our priority funding. So we have interpreter costs going up. We continue to have interpreter costs going up. And I bring this only to you. We are not asking to address it this year. But I want to make sure we always keep the commissioners apprised of the fact that this is a cost that continues to go up. In spite of our efforts to manage that as effectively as we can, we use a language line that is a phone interpretation service as often as we possibly can. And we try to combine, we have a combined interpreter calendar, so we limit the amount of time that we're having interpreters come into the court, because you have to pay a minimum in order to get them there at all. So we're, from a scheduling standpoint, we're being as efficient as we can. But we are seeing more and more people who appear in court who have language needs other than English, and we need to make sure that they understand what's happening in the proceedings that they are involved with. So we just wanted to make sure you were aware of that. That runs the gamut for district court for this year. I'm happy to
Do we have-
answer any questions you may have.
We have a couple of questions and comments, yeah.
I do. You gave a lot of good information, Judge. Increasing the commissioner position to full-time, even though it's just a percentage, how would that impact the pro tem judges, either in numbers that you would have to hire or in costs?
It would, I can't give you a percentage basis in the decrease of pro temps, but it would decrease our use of pro temps because we would have a commissioner available there to take
More
some
capacity.
hours that we now have to provide a pro tem for when a judge is not available.
At least to some level, yeah.
And knowing full well that you're going to do everything you can to accommodate folks that have a language barrier, we're meeting, I know, I want to hear it, we're meeting requirements of defendants or plaintiffs, whomever, that need language assistance.
Yes, and it's a constitutional requirement. We cannot conduct hearings and meet the due process needs of our defendants if they don't understand what's going on. And having a family member there who may or may not understand the legal terms that are being used and try to tell their aunt or their son or whomever what's going on doesn't work. So we need court-certified interpreters. We have a local or a state rule that says we have to use court-certified interpreters. And from the standpoint of sitting on the bench and looking at people who don't speak our language at least as well as is necessary to understand the legal terms, the blank look you would get if I spoke entirely in English and it wasn't translated to Spanish or Russian or in Tagalog or whatever language you're talking about, the system wouldn't work very well. So we have that obligation, and by the way, it also pertains to civil hearings. So if we have people show up on harassment calendars or civil calendars and they need an interpreter, our small claims calendar, we bring in interpreters so that they have an equal right to have their position heard. And it's important, I think, to the credibility of our system.
And I appreciate you bringing it back to the board's attention, but when I see interpreter access is listed under what's not being met, we're meeting the need, but it's not being funded?
Correct. And the costs keep going up. We are pulling money from other aspects of our budget.
Okay.
So not properly funded.
We're absorbing the overage.
Yeah, sufficiently, yeah.
What would that cost to bring that? Is that in here? What would it cost to?
It's not in here, but I bet we could get you a number.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Cool. I really appreciate, though, that you've taken the time to prioritize that and indicate that that's not your highest priority. So,
Yes, and let me make clear, it's not our highest priority only because we are able right now to absorb the increased costs. Providing interpreter access, frankly, would be our highest priority because it's absolutely essential to us that people who appear in the court understand what's going on. But we can meet it now through absorption, but at some point we're going to reach the level where we can't.
So what I'm hearing is the current practice is not sustainable.
Absolutely.
Because at some point, you're going to run out of options to fund within your means.
Correct.
So it needs to be addressed on an additional budget.
Yes. And that's why we keep bringing it back, just so nobody's surprised when all of a sudden we come in and say, oh, by the way, we need this money for interpreters, and you're saying, well, where's this coming from?
Right.
And now we have a history of it, and that's why we want to keep putting it in our budget.
Absolutely, not a problem. So you have a question, then I have a question.
Would that bring you up kind of to a line item to that position then? Is that, if this was approved, that'd become, and would that be the full extent of the line item needed? Or is that just kind of filling the gap?
Right now, that line item is 75% of an FTE, 0.75 FTE. It would go to a 1 FTE at the commissioner level that's already established by the board. So the board has created this position, it's there. And we're asking that it go from a 0.75 FTE to a 1 FTE so we can use that person full time.
Does that all come out of the general fund?
yes.
Rob?
Yes.
That's all they're fine.
I'm just thinking maybe that we could divide out their time somehow, kind of like the prosecutor does.
Did you have anything to remember, Robin?
No, I just got a question on the
And then I have one.
pro tem. And Your Honor, you said a certain percentage of the salary of the judges. So does that include benefits or just purely hourly rate that you pay the pro tem judges?
I'm going to say it's just the hourly rate, that's my understanding.
Okay.
Sure, yeah.
Right.
Robin, anything?
No, not at this time.
Okay, so Judge Buckley, under this one, district court, it says providing appropriate security is not being met. Can you just elaborate on that, just so I have a verbal or voice track on something like that?
Yeah, the issue there is related to the construction of a new courtroom. So if the courtroom gets constructed and if we will have to potentially move staff to accommodate that, we have a potential need for additional security if staff is relocated in a place where we currently don't have security. So we just put that out there. We'll have to see how all this works out, but we wanted to just bring it to the board's attention so we know that that may be an issue depending on.
Earlier versus later, yeah, I got it. Okay.
But our court security folks are great and we've been well served.
Okay. Any other comment, question? Okay, I just got to ask Judge Schaller, I don't know what your time is. Do you want to try to go with the Superior Court, or if not, I'll go with...
I am on a 15-minute recess from my trial confirmation calendar that started at 8:30 this morning with 66 matters potentially confirmed.
So let's go with you.
That would be great
Sure.
if that's possible, because I have to go back to court.
Yeah. So between you and Pam, and
All right.
how you want to work it out?
So the top three things that we have highlighted for the purpose of our presentation today is first our criminal case coordinator position that we are seeking.
So that's on page...
Superior Court,
Okay.
page after the district court page.
Okay. I got it. Go ahead.
All right, the criminal case coordinator position, this would be a new position to enhance the implementation of the felony leadership improvement project team recommendations that we have been implementing since June 1st. This person would help us ensure that the judges themselves are enforcing our new policies by helping us better prepare for our calendars, would help in the collection of data so that we would be able to ascertain how successful FLIP, as we call it, is working. We have no one who can keep data in our office, and would also be a help to our criminal system in general as it relates to helping to coordinate with our stakeholders to ensure that timely criminal cases can timely come up before the court. The second thing is that currently we have a half-time, just under half-time administrative assistant at Family and Juvenile Court who serves really as the receptionist or the person who welcomes the public. We have needed a full-time person at Family and Juvenile Court forever, basically, since we had to eliminate the position at one point as for a budget cut. At our main campus, we have someone who is present at our front window, who can greet the public, who can answer their questions, who can send them to the right place that they need to be. There's nothing like that at Family and Juvenile Court. We cannot be open all hours of the day because we do not have anyone to staff that. So sometimes the public comes to Family and Juvenile Court and they have to wait because they have no one to answer their questions. We are asking to make that a full-time position. And the final issue that we have as it relates to security, security has always actually been a top priority, number one for the court. And I would allow Pam to give more details, but this relates to the presentation that we would completely change how security is done here at the main campus, and that it would be provided for in tiers, including some security provided through the sheriff's office. But I would let Pam address any details as it relates to that.
Right, and there was information on our policy level request, which included, we already have, we already have screening, we already have transport through corrections, but this would include roaming security presence. And so there were two options that were provided in our policy level request. We would ask that if the commissioners could consider any of those requests, that you consider using interfund money for that, because we believe that this benefit would benefit the entire public in all of our offices. It shouldn't be just the burden of one office to carry the security load, and right now Superior Court is carrying that load. But it benefits every single law and justice partner. It benefits the entire public to be safe and secure, and so our courthouse is accessible. And so it would really make it so that that third component of security was available to us, and that was best practice recommendation.
So Pam, are you suggesting that we should pay for security out of some type of a central pool, that the board should create a pool and pay for it that way rather than take it out of any one particular budget? That's a very interesting idea.
I am.
No, it's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
But everything comes from the general fund.
It is all general fund.
So
but-
and you don't have the
Big
luxury of
general fund
the
in the
regular
sky.
inter-fund transfers to include the outside of the general fund. So that is not so an option.
We might be able to.
Might stretch it a little bit there, Robin, maybe?
Solid waste will not be able to pay for
No,
this.
we can't use solid waste or REIT. But I have an idea that I would have to pursue before I'd want to put it on the table. It's an
Good.
interesting idea.
Thank you for thinking about that.
Yes, because it does benefit everybody, not just Superior Court. Yeah.
All right, anything else?
Do you have any questions?
Don't.
Oh, hang on. Go ahead, go.
Just out of curiosity, I'm not saying, but on the criminal case coordinator, can that be anything less than 1.0 for FTE? Can it be 0.75, 0.5? I'm just asking.
I will tell you that we have never had that discussion. For workload wise, I know that there's more than full-time work that is in the job description for this person. We have set a number of things that I don't even think someone could meet within 40 hours. So it would have to be the description would have to be different if we did not have full funding for the position.
I'm just trying to get where
I
we
appreciate
stop and
that.
start with the dollars and getting to the service you're looking for. So, yeah.
So it's all or nothing. Is that?
That's not what I said.
No.
What I
So
said
that's what.
You're not going to get it on that.
was that we had never contemplated it
Okay.
less than a full-time position because it actually is more than a full-time position job duties. And we would have to look at what the job duties would be if it was less than.
Right, and I'm just asking, where's the flexibility? If you absolutely say it has to be that way, then that's one way, but if it stops at 1.8 or something like that, it might be some flexibility in that. I don't know.
The intent is to coordinate all
Yeah.
all of the law
I
and
got
justice partners, and so if you have a position that isn't always there available to our law and justice partners for calendars, for availability, then I think you're continuing to miss that critical component.
Sure.
And-
I'm just
and
trying to
that's
get the
what-
dollars.
I know.
I'm sorry, but it's
But-
all about the money right now. Yeah.
That's what continues to lack right now, and so if now you cut out days.
But don't get me wrong, I'm not advocating. I actually would want you to have the 1.0. I'm just looking where the start and stop point of it is.
Yeah.
Robin.
So is there a possibility that we could fund this out of the trial court improvement fund?
No.
And could you elaborate on, because that's a very quick answer.
That's not what trial court improvement funds are for. And that is not how we have used them in the past. We have used them and regularly use them to improve our process, to pay for our project manager
One time.
on FLIP, to pay for, I believe, the project manager for the dependency project that is going on at Family
Yep.
Juvenile Court right now. But it would not be to have us fund a full-time position out of trial court improvement funds, and that's really not what those funds were meant for, from our perspective.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
I would just like to say before Judge Schaller has to leave again, how much I appreciate, I can see from this presentation that this group took some time, thought about how this connects to the strategic plan, took the time to prioritize your asks, and I really do appreciate all the work that you've put into this. So just to say thank you.
Thank you, and I do have to leave to go back to court, but I would like to say that I completely support juvenile court.
There you go, Mike.
I'm not able to stay for that portion because juvenile court, of course, is part of Superior.
Yeah.
Thank you, I apologize.
Thank you,
for
Judge.
today.
Come
Thank
on
you,
back
Judge.
now. Mike, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Juvenile court, our top priority was to add additional funding for our extra help or on-call staff for the detention center, as well as adding to additional support support for a new program I will describe, the youth development program. We're hopeful that this additional funding can be granted through the detention sales tax. If the $100,000 allocated to the team were to be evenly distributed, $20,000 apiece, we would add that to that pool of dollars to give us further capacity within that program. In terms of what isn't necessarily supported and needs that we have in the department, I've actually made a few notes here, wrote this down so that I can make sure I stayed within my allotted time.
Sure.
So there were two positions I wanted or two requests I wanted to address. I think you're aware that 3 years ago we started a garden project at the juvenile court for the purpose of creating an alternative to formal incarceration for youth under the supervision of the juvenile court. As you know, the garden has been a huge success since its beginning. This year we donated over 4,000 pounds to the food bank. The basic intent of the garden is to require young offenders to repay their debt to their community by giving back to the community through their hard work. We believe that this effort better serves the accountability and rehabilitative mandate for young people under our supervision. And we've been able to significantly reduce our reliance on formal incarceration through this effort. At the same time, we've been able to connect kids to their home community in a way that we could never do through our historical over-reliance on detention. The added bonus is that we've been able to do this transformation at little to no additional cost to the county. Earlier this year, we implemented another program that builds on the positive youth development concept that underlies our garden project. The youth development program, as it's called, started in February of this year and essentially treats kids as resources to be developed, not problems to be fixed. We've expanded on the idea of connecting youth with community resources in a restorative fashion, much like we've done in the garden. We're teaching life skills and connecting youth with the community in an effort to build hope and create resiliency in our youth. We believe that youth in the community are better served in this capacity than they are by simply locking kids up in detention. As a result, we have further decreased our detention population to record low population numbers. We've been able to staff this new program and the garden by redeploying detention staff resources to these programs. One of our lessons learned in the last 8 months of this program is that our ability to redeploy staff is limited as we still are obligated to staff the detention center at minimum staffing levels. We have 3 detention staff currently assigned to run the garden and the youth development program. It's proving difficult to operate both programs without additional staff resources. If the current staff members get sick or take a vacation day, we have to shut down the program because we are unable to cover their absence. We also want to provide transportation to the programs, as this can be an obstacle for many youth participants. We need an additional staff member to assist with transportation and the operation of the program. I'm asking for one, or would be asking for one FTE to add to the staff of our detention alternative programming. We believe that by doing so, we can continue to expand on the great work we've done in the last couple of years. The proof is in our record of low number of detention admissions in the last 3 years. The other request is in our CASA program. I think you're familiar with CASA, which essentially is a program that provides advocacy for young people who are dependent of the state. This is a volunteer-based program where volunteers serve as the advocates for these youth. The 5 paid positions that we have supervise the volunteer advocates. In addition to direct supervision and support of the volunteers, paid staff are responsible for the recruitment and training of new volunteers. They facilitate 3 to 4 new volunteer trainings per year. They are also responsible for direct advocacy support of dependent youth when there aren't enough CASA volunteers. They are also mandated to maintain extensive statistical reporting to the state and national CASA organizations. Currently, we have 65 volunteers and a caseload of 316 dependent youth. Each volunteer carries 3 youth on their caseload, totaling 195 cases that are supervised by volunteers. That means that paid staff are responsible for 121 cases that must be managed in addition to the other responsibilities that I mentioned. Ideally, we would have enough volunteers to cover all 316 dependent youth and paid staff would support all of those volunteers. Unfortunately, that's not our reality. I would be asking for another case manager position to ease the caseload burden and allow staff to pursue volunteer advocates more readily and support them as needed. Thanks.
Where do you find all your volunteers?
It's very labor intensive. They do a lot of outreach and spend a lot of time in that recruitment effort. And anytime you have a volunteer base, there's high rates of turnover. So it's a constant process of recruitment. And that's why it's so important that with the low ratios of kids to volunteers, you keep that number manageable in order to try to retain the volunteers longer term. But it is challenging, and they do a lot of outreach. And as I said, they're also carrying their own caseload, which is really not the design of the program.
Sure.
It's volunteer-based. But the kids have to have that advocacy, so we need to have that volunteer.
Sometime back, we cleared about $1 million in debt that had accumulated over quite a period of time.
Okay.
And now, are we kind of staying current with that as far as, so that doesn't build up again?
Right. Oh, yeah. We've changed some procedures around the parent pay program to put a limit on how much would be ordered or required, both in terms of a daily limit as well as a lifetime limit and managing that. The Board of Judges has agreed to review that program mid-2019 to see where we are with the intent of determining where we want to move in the future, with the potential to either continue that or to eliminate the program.
And you said you had your custody numbers down. Are you still down around 10 or
That's correct.
something in that order?
The average daily through September was 12. We've been down about 10 average for the last month.
Have you guys in your field discussed any of the possibilities about how we could utilize those empty beds?
Yes.
Is there something coming up that
There is
we're going to
something
hear
coming
about
up.
later on?
Yes.
Okay, good enough.
All right, what do you got?
Things have changed over the years and decades, haven't they, Mike?
Yes, they have, dramatically.
I'm familiar with the Seeds of Change with the Garden Initiative and advocate for that, but I'm not familiar with the Youth Development Program. Is that curriculum-based, classroom type thing?
Yes, it is. We used to have a detention alternative, a day school as we call
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
It was primarily operated by the Tumwater School District and served as at that time, our primary detention alternative. Due to low numbers, Tumwater School District had to pull out a couple of years ago because they couldn't sustain staffing, given the low numbers. Our commitment was to review that in the interim and with the goal of resurrecting a program that we actually feel is better than what that was. That was really primarily educationally based. So kids that would come in and they would do homework and that kind of thing. We wanted to expand on that, as I mentioned, and expand on it to sort of adopt sort of the core philosophy of what the garden is intended to do with the connection to community-based resources and serving a more positive developmental concept. And that's what we're doing.
Is this a homegrown curriculum, or is it something that's
No,
based on
it's
a national model?
The youth development model is a national concept. How it's operationalized, it's interpreted differently by different jurisdictions and locations, and customized to our particular needs in this case.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I have a question. And on your first request is related to the special advocate juvenile probation counselor. On your description, forgive me if I misunderstood, but the intent was to fulfill for those current FTEs, they're gone on vacation and everything else, because if they go on vacation, you don't have the capacity to continue with the programs, right?
That's not the CASA program. That's
No.
for the youth development program
Right.
and the garden. Also covering in detention. We're pretty much at minimum staffing level
Okay.
in detention given the low numbers. But we have a minimum staffing requirement given particularly the layout of our facility. So if a detention officer takes a day off, vacation leave, they also are granted a fair amount of miscellaneous leave per contract agreement. And they're entitled to that. They take a day off. We have to cover those shifts in most cases. We draw from our on-call or extra help pool folks to fill those shifts, as well as now with the YDP, the Youth Development Program. And if Shane wanted to take a day off in the garden, there's nobody to cover for him.
So is that a full-time position or a half-time position?
Which one?
The both.
I would like to have another full-time position dedicated to the YDP program. Ideally, that would be my preference. And that person could work in combination with the garden and with the afternoon YDP component. We run that program in the afternoon and into the evening after school hours to make that more accessible to kids. We want to provide transportation to get kids there for that. We currently don't have that opportunity with the limited staffing that we have for that.
So I'm just trying to get to some clarity around these positions. If I look at pages 4 and 5, where you fit them with the initiatives,
Yeah.
if I'm understanding you, on page 5 where we have initiative number 11, that's the innovative justice, under juvenile court, extra help would be number 1, community supervision for the youth program would be number 2, and then on page 4, the juvenile probation for CASA would be number 3. Is that accurate?
Well, definitely the extra help, number 1.
Okay.
I think given the fact that it appears that we're going to be granted the request on the extra help extension through the detention sales tax. If that is the case, and then potentially adding in the 20 grand from the agreement of this group, then that would get closer to addressing my need for the youth development program position, would leave the CASA program without any additional resources.
Great. Thank you.
I have 2 real quick follow-up, Mike. The YDP right now, how much staff time is devoted to that?
We have one. We consider the garden now to be part of that in the building sense, but we have Shane in the garden, and then we have 2 other staff that are in the afternoon YDP component now.
Okay, and then you would like to provide transportation. I would imagine a lot of kids need that.
Yes.
Where's the cost? Is that cost built in somewhere?
Well, the cost in terms of the operation of the actual transportation would be absorbed. The need is in the FTE to drive the van, and also to participate in the programming component. So it's going out, picking the kids up, working with them in the program, taking them out into the community to the various resources that we have available.
Okay.
Driving them home.
Thanks, sir.
Anything else?
Any intercity transit, can that come into play here at some
Well,
point with maybe purchase passes or?
Well, we do that currently.
Already.
And I understand that intercity transit is expanding or potentially
We're hoping to expand.
to our area, which will help. Because currently, with our program ending in the evening, there's no ability for them to access, not easily anyway, the transit system from our facility, which is where the program is based. So,
When you mentioned extra help, is that like corrections officers or everybody in the field?
it's the detention officer.
Detention. Do you ever share with the adult correction facility as far as just drawing them? I mean, they're kind of trained and whatnot, so they give you a pool
I think there's a different training.
I suppose,
There's a different
yeah.
skill set.
Yes, yes.
And different priorities. We really try, I'm not saying that the jail doesn't, but I think they probably don't have the ability to the extent that we do to operate the facility in more of a rehabilitative fashion. We have much smaller numbers, which allows the skill set of particular detention officers to work more in one-on-one capacity with kids and really centered around programming. The truth of the matter is that the detention officer that we hire these days is substantially different from the detention officer we hired 20, 25 years ago.
Just one last question related to the empty beds. You're saying you're working on a proposal or assumptions or?
But there's a statewide proposal from the Juvenile Court Administrators Association. I think you're aware of that recent legislation expanded juvenile jurisdiction for the Juvenile Rehabilitation Administration to age 25 to house those kids. So that creates a capacity burden on JR given their current resources. So one proposal was, or is, that years ago we had a program within the state called the Community Commitment Program, which allowed the counties to contract with the state to house shorter-term JR kids in local facilities. We view this as an opportunity maybe to resurrect that model We believe that it potentially could serve kids better in their local communities rather than going to juvenile institutions. And it would potentially save, it potentially could be a...
Generate revenue.
Yeah, revenue generator.
Yeah.
Right. There are, it's not all wine and roses. There are some downsides to that consideration.
Right.
And we don't know exactly yet whether the state is willing to do that and at what level. It would have to be adequately funded, and it would require significant
Staffing.
additional resources, not in terms
To
of
oversight,
staffing,
yeah.
but programmatically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for looking, though.
Anything else? No? Anything else, Judge? No? I'm just making sure. I'm going to go to her in a second. I just want to make sure before we go. Okay, Marianne.
Good morning.
Good morning. Oh, back to the beginning.
Yeah.
So my ask this year was for 3 additional FTEs, one of which was from the treatment sales tax fund. That was for an FTE that would be a pretrial officer that would work with a conversion unit, which would be in relation to pretrial services. My understanding is that was recommended to you all through the treatment sales tax advisory committee. That would be working closely with the first units of both prosecuting attorney's office and public defense. The other ask was through the general fund, and that was for 2 additional pretrial officers. And in my opinion, that is actually a conservative ask because 3 FTEs would also be helpful for me in terms of meeting the need to expand to district court and meet the current workload demands that are on pretrial services through Superior Court. But in being aware of what the budget constraints are and other asks that are on there, pretrial services could expand to district court and meet the current workload demands with 2 pretrial officers. That would be with focus on domestic violence cases and DUI cases in district court. I did meet with the judges and ask them what their priorities were for pretrial services, and those are the 2 priorities. So I did take that into consideration with the ask. Universal screening is a national best practice for pretrial services, and that's not currently happening. We did in the last almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years in December that I've been here. But we have expanded our universal screening to include warrants in Superior Court. That wasn't happening. So we have come closer to that. But my ask on the general fund has been almost twice of what we had as a team here. And so we did, as a team, talk about other ways we could meet this. District Court also did say they would benefit if it did go to pretrial services, but it's hard to say that any one department should get the entire
allocation.
sum of money. And looking at other ways that would be less expensive if a part-time person would meet the need. No, a half-time FTE for a pretrial officer cannot meet district court's needs. It would be conservative to say that they would likely send about 600 cases to us for supervision. If I looked at the number of filings for domestic violence and DUI cases, looking at the national statistics, my anticipation would be about 600 cases, and that is not enough for one pretrial officer, let alone a half-time. I looked at having an administrative assistant who could take off some of the paperwork burden and tasks that my current pretrial officers have, but we still would need someone who would be able to do some of the supervision tasks and screening tasks, because you cannot properly supervise someone in the community without knowing what their risk levels are and doing adequate screening. So in order to stick with the national best practices and the standards that are out there, we would need to do screening. So that is why I prioritized universal screening. Do you have any questions?
We have questions.
So if you got all the requests, would that cut down jail population?
That's an interesting question. Chief Toma and I have had conversations when his population is down. My population in the community and the supervision caseloads for my staff are up. So that's an interesting question. I would anticipate that if I had a larger caseload, that's a possibility.
But I'll contribute an answer, and that would be yes, with some of the people that we have incarcerated through district court. Now that's, you know, a relatively small portion of the jail population, but our ability to have them monitored through pretrial services would then allow us to potentially not put them in jail because we don't have any other satisfactory monitoring method. We use technology, for example, a SCRAM device, biologic alcohol monitoring device, or an experimental device, but that's pretty expensive. It runs about $15 a day, and there are some defendants who can't afford that. And if we have a significant public safety risk, the only alternative, if they say, I'm sorry, I can't afford it, is, and I say, I'm sorry, then you're going to stay in jail. Now, if we had pretrial services where I could have them UA'd on a regular basis and checking in and be observed with eyes, that may allow us to keep some of those folks out of custody. So I can tell you that it would draw down to some degree the district court population that is pretrial in jail.
Yeah, and what, possibly increase public safety and, at the same time.
Sure.
We talked about the new case that came out where judges need to make a determination on a case-by-case basis. That's not the new case, but they also need to look at what other resources are out there in terms of release and if there's any other way to keep the public safe. And so I think that having expanded pretrial services could possibly help our Superior Court judges as well in that benefit. So I just kind of wanted to.
I have a question.
Yeah, your question here, it says 2. You started with 3. Now, is that 2 instead of 3, or is it 5 you would like? Ideally.
My ask this year was for 3. One was through the treatment sales tax, and then 2 through the general fund.
Okay.
I just wanted to explain to you why it's a conservative request.
Yeah. And I don't know how much EM you deal with now, electric monitoring.
That's my question also.
Because if we're going to expand it, you would be dealing potentially with more EM, I would think.
That is currently a program through corrections. Pretrial services does not do EM.
Doesn't do EM currently.
I don't have the staff resources to have that currently.
But there's chatter about potentially doing that, the potentiality of doing that.
A caseload right now is, I think one individual has a caseload of 300 people that she supervises in the community, and I can't add EM monitoring to her. And so-
Okay. All right, thank you.
And additionally, I think the other individual supervises 250 to 270 people on this caseload, and again, it's a staffing.
It's a capacity issue, right? All right, thank you.
It would be effective.
Any question?
So, Your Honor, did I hear you say that ability of the defendant to pay the cost of electronic home monitoring is a barrier to having that program?
Absolutely.
So what if we eliminated that cost? Because it costs us more to have them in the jail than it would cost to pay for that program and not have the person have to pay. What would you think of that idea?
Couldn't agree more with that brilliant idea.
I wouldn't call it brilliant, and I'm not making it up on my own, but
You know, I just came from a national judicial conference where one of the big conversations was how many people we incarcerate, you know, nationwide. And we need to look at different ways of addressing our community safety needs without putting people behind bars. And the technology was intended to do it, but the technology price is pretty high for a lot of the people who need it.
Right.
So having the ability to use that and not have the excuse of I can't afford it, will greatly expand our use of it. So for example, we've had in Veterans Court particularly, groups who, for the Strophe Foundation has been great, they sometimes offer money to allow us to fund these monitors, and actually one of the monitoring companies said, we'll give you a year's worth of monitoring for any participant in Veterans Court. So that was great. So when I found the need, I could just impose the monitor, and I didn't have to worry about the defendant saying, I can't afford it. So we could do it, and I had no barrier or restriction on my ability to do it, and it was a really great tool. Now, that was a one-year program with that agency. They are no longer offering it, but when it's available, it's a really effective way of not putting somebody in jail.
Got a note of that?
My next question then is, who can I talk to try to pencil out how much that would be as compared to jail costs? And we can work on that?
We can certainly give it to you for the district court population, and I'm sure numbers could be run for the superior court population. And
perfect.
You know, there's a lot of goodwill in the community. Reaching out to the providers of these devices and say, you know, I don't want to negotiate for them, but if you want to be able to provide these devices to defendants ordered by district court and superior court to have them, if you'll contribute 1 month free, and then, you know, before you get on the list of authorized providers, I think there are all kinds of ways to leverage that approach. You might be able to get some public assistance.
Thank you.
Mike, what about your group?
I think there might be some benefit there as well. I mean, we don't have a lot of. Yeah.
But could that work?
Oh,
Could it help?
Yes, it certainly could for the, you know, and in terms of expanding that possibility, I think that's a worthwhile conversation.
Okay.
Linda, did you have any other comments?
I have nothing more to add.
Okay.
Thank you.
From this morning, yes. About anything else?
I'm done.
Anything
Nope.
else?
May I
Sure.
jump in? We've had a meeting here where we're all asking for things. Can I tell you about a couple things you're doing that don't take any money whatsoever, and you don't have to
Oh, please.
allocate us anything? We've started a program in district court where we have agreements with all the other courts in Thurston County to quash warrants. So when somebody appears in front of us and has an Olympia warrant or a Yelm warrant or a Tenino warrant, we can quash those warrants and give them a court date. Likewise, those courts have the same authority to quash our warrants. So we are reducing the number of people who are out there without, who have warrants and sometimes get arrested on those warrants. So we're now just giving them court dates. We do it on the spot, and it's not cost anybody any money. So we are reducing the numbers of our FTAs or failures to appear by doing that. Now, we've just started it here a couple months. I can't give you numbers on that, but I know I have quashed a number of warrants out of other courts in doing this. I would love to be able to do it for courts up and down the I-5 corridor, because then we would really see a big hit on our ability to get folks back into court without having to warrant them in. So that's one thing I think that the courts can do without costing anything. Another thing we're doing...
Just for clarity,
yes.
quashing a warrant means what? To the people who are listening.
We remove the warrant and give them a court date. So rather than have them arrested, taken into that court, and then made to appear on that warrant, we are just handing them a court date and
Right
saying,
there on the
show
spot.
up.
Okay.
So the
And if
opposite.
they don't show up, then another warrant gets issued. And
But at least it starts a different process. Yeah.
yes, it does.
And that's done by the officer in the field, yes?
No.
I know one jurisdiction that does that. You have a warrant, I'm going to give you a new court date right now, and it's quashed and moved on.
If the court may have arrangements with their law enforcement to do that. Our arrangement is with other courts. If somebody shows up, and I will look down their whole history, if I see warrants out of any other courts in the county, I will quash them as long as I'm releasing the person. I don't do it, obviously, if I'm holding them in jail, because then they'll miss their next hearing in the other court. But if I'm releasing them, then I will quash their other warrants. And that just improves the movement of defendants in the court.
But he has one more thing to say, so.
The other thing we're working on is coming up with a process of being able to have people who owe financial obligations to different courts, setting it up on one-time payment agreement, so with portions going out to each of the courts, which would be a really effective way of addressing folks. And when we realize that a lot of their legal financial obligations are keeping people from driving, it results in a suspended license. If we can assist them in ways of reducing those financial obligations and being able to get their license, we can get them back to work. We can not have so many people stopped or driving suspended. So I think the system overall would see a benefited from that financially as well as just from adherence to the law. So those are things that we're working on that we haven't come to you to ask for anything because we figured out ways to do it without having to ask.
Thank you very much.
Good information.
You know, and when you make that, when you squash that warrant like that, I mean, that potentially saves 4 or 5 days in jail, you know, from wherever they're coming from.
It does, and it adds credibility to the system.
Yeah.
Because when I have a defendant sitting in front of me and I've taken care of his warrant and I'm saying, I'm letting you go, I used to have to say, now you have warrants in other courts and I have no idea what the judge is going to do when you appear there.
Right.
Well, they aren't entirely buying into the system. But when I can say, I'm quashing this warrant and I'm going to quash the other warrants you have in Thurston County, they then have some greater faith in the system. And they are more likely to show up because they have that residual faith or increased faith.
And this is precisely why we're live streaming as well, so the public knows what the courts and law and justice are doing. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Any final comments or questions? No? Thank you for your patience and your professionalism. It's one family, one team, and we're all doing a great stuff to serve.
All in this game together.
Thank you, and I really appreciate you taking
Yes.
the effort and actually having a meeting, having a perspective of the strategic plan initiative. So much appreciated. Thank you.
Yes, good job.